Okay, meeting is being live streamed. Good. Participants, very good. Okay, so let's begin. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Um, Very happy that all of you could join this session. Uh, First, start with a short prayer from the Upanishads. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today we begin the Bhagavad Gita proper. So we had a short orientation session 2 days back. So today I'll start with the Gita. Um, Before I get into the verses, actually, just a couple of points by way of introduction. Now, as I mentioned, the Bhagavad Gita is a battlefield conversation. So all the preparation for war was done by the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And on the battlefield, just before it was about to start, suddenly Arjuna loses heart. And in response to that, Krishna gives the Bhagavad Gita. So the way in which it appears in the epic is that Krishna and Arjuna are talking on the battlefield. This is being seen by Sanjaya, who has got special vision to see what's happening on the battlefield and report it to Dhritarashtra, the blind king. This was composed by Vyasa in a certain poetic meters, and it was taught by Vyasa to his disciple Vaishampayana, who later narrated this story to Janamejaya, who is the great grandson of Arjuna. Now, what was narrated by Vaishampayana to Janamejaya is later retold by the Sutta Puranika to Shaunaka and all the sages in Dandakaranya. So there is so much of retelling, and this has been retold by many bards and raconteurs and harikatakaras over the years, and we have got this text in the oral tradition. So therefore, it becomes very difficult to answer the question whether exactly Krishna said these words to Arjuna on the battlefield, because there was no tape recorder, there was no video cam, there was no iPhone. So there's no way we can find out whether these are exactly the words that Krishna told Arjuna. So it is basically a poetic representation, I would think, and whether exactly there was so much of time before the war to discuss all these things, it takes so much of time. It is difficult to say. But in the earlier days, the war would not start until both the parties have agreed and that the signal is given to start. So therefore, there is a possibility of discussion and deliberation. And after the Bhagavad Gita is completed, then Yudhishthira goes to take blessings from all the elders like Bhishma and Drona and Kripa and all that. And only then the war starts. So we can assume that there was some amount of time for this conversation to happen. Now, the Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned, is 700 shlokas divided into 18 chapters. Although it is structured like this, it is not in the form of a primer of philosophy. It's not like a textbook where, chapter 1 has got the basic ideas and chapter 2 builds on that and chapter 3 is further concepts. So it's like a conversation between friends. So, and Krishna and Arjuna, like I mentioned, they are similar age, they are friends, and it's like a conversation that we have between two friends. So it will go in a meandering fashion, discussing about a variety of things. the Bhagavad Gita shlokas, 700 shlokas, have been commented upon by several saints and philosophers and thinkers. The earliest that we have available to us right now is the commentary by Shankaracharya in the 7th century. That's what some of the scholars put him in the 7th century, the Common Era. Then later, other acharyas have also commented upon it, like Ramanuja, Madhva, Abhinavagupta has commented on it, and Nimbarka, Vallabha, and several other scholars. It has also interestingly been a great inspiration for a lot of leaders of the Indian freedom movement and people who came around that time. So people like Bal Gangadhar Tilak have written a commentary on the Gita called Gita Rahasya. It was a very inspiring text for Swami Vivekananda. Also Gandhi, Aurobindo, Vinoba Bhave, Rajaji, Subramanya Bharadiyar, all these people have either translated or written something about Bhagavad Gita. So not just the ancient scholars, it has also been, had a huge influence on the freedom movement. And Bhagavad Gita is one such text which has inspired a lot of scholars from around the world, thinkers and scholars from around the world. In fact, in our new Bhagavad Gita, there is an entire section that we have dedicated towards the influence of the Gita. So there's a lot of quotations. If somebody is interested, can go through a wide range of quotations and very, very glowing tributes paid by scholars from US and France and UK and all over the place, and very, very accomplished people. They have found solace, and they have found this to be very valuable. So at least, if not anything, we have this pramana or the proof of apta vakya, what we call in in our traditional shastra, the trusted word of a friend. So if Vivekananda says this is a good work, then we can at least start with the belief that yes, it has probably got something for us. Similarly, if a great scholar from the West has said this is a very good work, then we can use that as a pramana. So that can be a starting point for us to study the Gita. Now, when I said Gita, immediately what comes to your mind is Bhagavad Gita. But Bhagavad Gita is not the only Gita. There are several other Gitas. In fact, even in the Mahabharata, there are other Gitas. So whether it is like Anu Gita, there is Ashtavakra Gita, there is Ribu Gita, Ganesha Gita, Shiva Gita, then Avadhuta Gita, Uddhava Gita. Like there's so many Gitas are there. And many of them are very interesting, very valuable. But when we say Gita, it means Bhagavad Gita. So that is the appeal and popularity of the work. It is also the first work of Indian origin to cross these seas and reach the shores of America. And it was translated, I think, first into English in the 18th century. It has been translated thousands of times into tens of languages. And without doubt, it is the most popular book of India, if not Asia. So this is the appeal and the influence of the Gita. There was a question from a couple of people about where the Bhagavad Gita stands in the larger scriptural, structure of, I think, a larger scriptural framework of Sanatana Dharma. So I will just share my screen. Can you see my screen? Is one of you can just let me know on chat if you can see my screen? Yes, you can. Okay, good. So the foundational works of Hinduism, basic division is in two parts. One is called the Shruti, that which is heard and remember, that which is learned by the oral tradition and by hearing, which is called Shruti, and Smriti, which is that which is remembered. And usually when we say Smriti, it is Smriti texts which all come under the Smriti. These are composed by a certain author about a certain topic. Whereas Shruti is a Veda, which is a collection of the revelations of a multitude of rishis and rishikas. So rishis are men, rishikas are women. Both of them are, I would, just for the ease of understanding, you can say like a prophet or like a person who's a seer. But rishi is a or rishika is a mantra drashtara. They are, the mantra was revealed to them. So when we say revelation, that means it is a realization of certain truths. Just like there was gravity from the time the Earth was created, but it was revealed to Sir Isaac Newton in some 16th century, whenever. So gravity did not come with Isaac Newton; it was always there, but he is the one who realized it and gave a mathematical structure to it. So like that, it is a realization of certain truth. So when, say, let us say Yagnivalkya says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, that whatever we like because of our sake, not because of that object itself. No, this is a great revelation, which is true even before Yagnivalkya gave us this mantra, right? So this is a collection of the revelations of the great rishis and rishikas. The Smriti texts are actual works which are authored. Now, in the Shruti, there is, like I told you, the author of the Mahabharata, Krishna Dvaipayana, he divided the Vedic corpus into four different divisions. That's why he's called Veda Vyasa. Vyasa is to divide. So he's the compiler or the arranger of the Veda into Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. And under each Veda, there are different sections. Now, similarly, in the Smriti text, we have the Vedangas, which are the auxiliary disciplines which are required to study Veda thoroughly. So we need Shiksha, which is the science of pronunciation. We need Vyakarana, which is grammar. Chandas is prosody, poetic meter, because a lot of the Veda is composed in poetic meter. We need to know the science of poetic meters. Then Nirukta is the semantic etymology of the words. So how did a word come? What is the root of the word? So this study is called Nirukta. Then Jyotisha is astronomy, astrology. Both these elements are there, because if you want to do any yajna, if you want to undertake any activity, they had to see all the stars and they wanted to calculate these things. So Jyotisha was a very developed field. And Kalpa is we can loosely say liturgy, but it is to do with rituals, dharma, law books like Dharma Sutras, then the Shrauta Sutras, which are all related to Shruti, the Grihya Sutra related to running of a home, and the Shulba Sutras, which are specifically to do with Yajna. Then we have Upavedas, which are loosely, again, you can say they are secular treatises. So they are not religious in nature. They are separate from religion. So you have Ayurveda, Artha Veda, Gandharva Veda, Sthapatya Veda. So Ayurveda is science of health and long life. Artha Veda is science of economics, politics, these kind of subjects. Then Gandharva Veda is like the fine arts, music, dance, aesthetics. We have works like Natya Shastra and Kama Sutra. All this come under Gandharva Veda. And Sthapatya Veda is like, architecture and temple construction and so on. Apart from this, we have the Itihasa literature, which is epics based on history. So whether Ramayana, Mahabharata are history in the literal sense, did exactly it happen the way it is narrated in Ramayana, Mahabharata? Probably not. But the core story is history. So the way in which our ancient people felt it is good to record the history is to capture the values from our historical episodes instead of giving dry factual information, and make it into an interesting story so that we learn from the mistakes of the past. Because the whole objective of history is to learn from our mistakes. And how better to learn than from a beautiful story? So that is the Itihasa literature. The Purana has got a lot of old episodes and stories, and they are encyclopedic works. So there are 18 Mahapuranas and 18 Upapuranas, many other works. Then we have the Smritis and other texts, which are like law digests. We have Agamas, which a lot of the temple tradition is covered in that. Then we have the Darshanas, the different schools of philosophy. Amidst all this, a harmony of the various concepts is seen in Bhagavad Gita, which is, like I told you, a small part of the Mahabharata. Before I go to the invocation and then to the Gita verses. Just one point I want to mention. There were a few questions about this from people about the allegorical nature of the Bhagavad Gita. In a sense, is the Kurukshetra representation of our life, and Krishna is a representation of something. Now, my personal view is that there is already so much of allegory and metaphor and symbolism in the Gita itself that I personally don't feel that Vyasa meant this to be a metaphor, because he's talking about an entire story of the cousins and the battle and everything. So this seems to be more a realistic thing from which he's taking this opportunity of the war and creating a situation where there is a conversation about life. So whether because some schools have this very elaborate discussion about how the different characters of Mahabharata are within us and so on. Well, nothing wrong to have that kind of interpretation, but I don't think that is what Vyasa meant, because he is saying in very clear words what are the philosophy, what are the things that we need to do in our life, and how to approach things. So when he's already said the Siddhanta in the verses, I don't think he has meant the larger case of the body which is holding these things to be allegorical in nature. So, with this short introduction, let us go to the invocation. There is a set of shlokas called the Gita Dhyanam and a set of shlokas called the Gita Mahatmyam. I will cover the entire set at the end of the course, but today I will just take up one very beautiful verse of invocation. Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopalanandanaha partho vatsah sudhir bhokta dugdham gitamritam mahat. So this verse says that if all the Upanishads can be likened or can be compared to cows, and Gopalanandana, the milkman or the cowherd, is Gopalanandana or Krishna, right? Krishna is the milkman, or Krishna is the one who is milking the cow. Parthaha Vatsaha, the calf is Partha, which is Arjuna. And Sudhir Bhokta. So the people who are consuming this are the good people, noble people. And Dugdham, what is the milk? That is the great Gita Amritam. That is the nectar known as Gita. So if all the Upanishads can be likened to cows, then Krishna is the milkman who's milking the cows and feeding it to the calf, which is Partha. So the milk has been produced for the sake of the calf. So Arjuna is the reason why this is produced. And what is the milk? It is a great Gita, which is the essence of the Upanishads. And who are the people who are taking, imbibing this? Are the people who are good and noble and wise. So with this, we move to the first chapter, the first shloka. Now, just a note about the structure of the way we will do the shlokas. Every chapter begins with a short colophon and ends with a short colophon. I'll come to that in a minute. But now this is the first shloka of the Gita. So what I'll do, I will read out the verse for you. You can see your screen if you want to, and you can follow it. Either if you're comfortable with the Devanagari, you can read the Devanagari, or if you're comfortable with the Roman script, you can see the Roman script and follow it. I will then tell you the prose order of this shloka and explain word by word. Then what I'll do, I will recite one line, and I'll request one of you to maybe unmute and recite. And then because by this time you would have heard some of these words, it becomes easier. So if somebody can volunteer every class, if they like to repeat, just some of after I will repeat, I will say one line, you can repeat it, and so on. This is the structure I'll follow. Now let's go to the colophon. Colophon is a later addition which has been added for people to what do you say, recite the Bhagavad Gita, especially when they're doing a parayana. So it gives a little bit of information saying this is the beginning of the first chapter, this is the end of the first chapter. So in the colophon it says Atha Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Arjuna Vishada Yogo Nama Prathamodhyayaha. Thus we begin. Atha is usually a word which is used to say thus. It's a starting point. So this is the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, this is the first chapter, which is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the despondency of Arjuna, and Prathamodhyaya, the first chapter. Okay. I see that somebody has raised their hand. Okay, so Rajeshwari Godbole, you like to repeat it? So, okay, let me just see if I can. I think I have to make you a co-host, which will come to that. I will give you access to unmute. Give me a second. Okay. So let's go to the. So there's any other questions open? Okay, there's one question which I'll is significant to number 18, which I'll come to later. Okay, good. So the very first verse of the Gita, Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre, Samaveta Yuyutsavaha, Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva, Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So the prose order, if you rearrange this in prose, it will be Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dhritarashtraha Uvacha. When it comes together, it becomes Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Sanjaya is it's a sambodhana. He's telling Sanjaya. Sanjaya is his confidant, his charioteer, his advisor. So he's asking Sanjaya. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamakaha Pandavaha Cha Eva Kim Akurvata. So in this place known as Kurukshetra, which is a Dharmakshetra also, it is a sacred land, it is a land of Dharma. In this sacred land, there are Samaveta, people have come together. What kind of people? Yuyutsavaha, with eagerness to fight. And who are these people who have come together? Mamakaha Pandavaha Cha Eva. My people and the Pandavas have come together to fight, eager to fight. Kim Akurvata, what did they do? Okay, now we will repeat this. Now let me just try to figure out how to give access to you to unmute yourself. Just 1 second.
We can make her the co-host, Hari.
Okay.
I don't see who raised hand, otherwise I could.
Okay, so there is Rajeshwari Godbole said she would like to repeat. So Murli, if you can make her the co-host. So Rajeshwari ji, if you can switch on your video, then you'll show up in the earlier part of the.
I see. Her name was not showing this.
Okay, let's do one. Let's figure this out, Murli. From tomorrow's class, let's do that. So today I'll just repeat it myself, and all of you, whoever is interested, can repeat at your end. Okay?
Yes, I'm able to unmute now.
Oh, you're able to unmute. Okay, very good, fantastic. So let's go one line by line. Dhritarashtra Uvacha.
Dhritarashtra Uvacha.
Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre.
Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre.
Samaveta Yuyutsavaha.
Samaveta Yuyutsavaha.
Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva.
Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva.
Kim Akurvata Sanjaya.
Kim Akurvata Sanjaya.
Okay. Sanjayo Vacha. Next, Sanjaya says, Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudham Yodanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Sanjaya Uvacha Tada tu Vyudham Pandavanikam. Pandava plus Anikam. Pandavanikam Drishtva Raja Duryodhanaha Acharyam Upasangamya Vachanam Abravit. So, Then Tada, having seen, Vyudham is like a array or arrangement, Pandava Anikam, the army of the Pandava. So this arrangement of the Pandava army, seeing this arrangement of the Pandava army, Duryodhana goes up to his Acharya. Who is the Acharya? Drona. So he goes up to Drona and he says the following words. Vachanam Abravit. So he goes up to Drona and says the following words. Okay, so let's repeat this. Sanjaya Uvacha. Oh, you're not able to. Okay, let's see if I can make you the. Murli, can you make her the co-host?
Okay, unmuted
Yeah.
now.
Sanjaya Uvacha.
Sanjaya Uvacha.
Drishtva tu Pandavanikam.
Drishtva tu Pandavanikam.
Vyudham Duryodhanastada.
Vyudham Duryodhanastada.
Acharyam Upasangamya.
Acharyam Upasangamya.
Raja Vachanam Abravit.
Raja Vachanam Abravit.
Then Pashyetam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. So then he goes to the Drona and he says, Acharya, Tava Dhimata Shishyena Drupada Putrena Vyudham Panduputranam Etam Mahatim Chamum Pashya. He goes up to Drona, he says, Acharya. Acharya here is a Sambodhana, is an address to the Guru. He says, Tava Dhimata Shishyena, by your able, intelligent disciple. Who is the intelligent disciple he's talking about? Drishtadyumna, who is the brother of Draupadi and son of Drupada. Okay, so the brother of Draupadi and son of Drupada, who is Drona's disciple, and also the son of Drona's arch enemy, Drupada. So Drupada and Drona were friends and they were classmates in school. They had a fallout, and later Drupada sent his son to study with Drona, and Drona agreed to teach him. And this Drishtadyumna was born with the special purpose of destroying Drona, and yet Drona teaches him, which is interesting. And probably to instigate Drona, Duryodhana tells him, by your talented disciple, this brilliant guy, he is the one. See, who is the one who is fighting against us? Your talented disciple. He says, Tava Shishyena Dhimata, by your talented disciple, Drupada Putrena, the son of Drupada, who is Drishtadyumna. He has arranged, here, Vyudham is, he has arranged this Mahatim Chamum, great army of the Pandavas. He has arranged it. Look at how he has arranged it. Look at how he has organized this large army. We will see also a little later that it was a big surprise for Duryodhana and his team to see that the Pandavas had put together such a large army in such a short time. So for 13 years, the Kauravas, Duryodhana and others were ruling over the kingdom, and the Pandavas were relegated to the forest. And within a few months, so I think sometime in later part of November, they had the war, and the Ajnatavasa got over just earlier that year. So in less than 6 months, they have put together such a huge army, 7 Akshohinis, which is not too far away from the 11 Akshohinis that the Kauravas had. So it's almost like, the two political parties, and suddenly one of the parties is able to stitch up a lot of alliances in a short time when they are not in power. You see that kind of situation. So like that, they were really surprised. And we see that later on as well. He says, look how he has arranged this Pandava army. So we'll repeat. Pashyaitam Panduputranam.
Pashyaitam Panduputranam.
Acharya Mahatim Chamum.
Acharya Mahatim Chamum.
Vyudham Drupada Putrena.
व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण
Tava Shishyena Dhimata.
तव शिष्येण धीमता.
Then he says, Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharathaha. Atra Yudhi Shuraha Maheshwasaha Bhimarjuna Sama Santi Yuyudhanaha Virataha Cha Maharataha Drupadaha Cha. So, Atra, here, Yudhi, in this battlefield, Maheshwasa, Maha Ishu Asaha, the great archers, Bhima Arjuna Samaha, they are all equal to Bhima and Arjuna. So Duryodhana tells Drona, because Bhima and Arjuna are the high watermark of all accomplishments. They are the greatest warriors in the Pandavas side. In archery, it is Arjuna. In mace, in Gadayuddha, it is Bhima. They are remarkable warriors and very, very powerful soldiers. So he says, equal to Bhima and Arjuna, there are a lot of great warriors, fighters, Shuraha, brave, courageous, and great archers who are equal to Bhima and Arjuna in their prowess. Who are these people? Yuyudhana is another name for Satyaki. Satyaki was a student of Arjuna and a very close friend of Krishna. Then Virata. Virata is the king of Matsya. It is a place where the Pandavas went for their 1 year incognito, Ajnatavasa. And the Maharatha, Drupada. Drupada is father of Draupadi, king of Panchala. And Maharatha is a certain rank, like we have colonel and lieutenant and brigadier and general and things like that. So Rathi, Athirathi, Maharathi, like this, there are different ranks. One of the explanations is that the Maharatha is one who can fight against 10,000 warriors at the same time. So he's so good in archery. Basically, one of the top ranking in the army hierarchy. Okay. Repeat. Atra Shura Maheshwasa.
अत्र शूरा महेश्वासः
Bhimarjuna Samahayudhi.
भीमार्जुनसमायुधि
Yuyudhano Viratascha.
युयुधानो विराटश्च
Drupadascha Maharathaha.
द्रुपदश्च महारथः.
Then he says, Drishtaketus Chekitanaha, Kashi Rajascha Viryavan, Purujit Kunti Bhojascha, Shaibyascha Narapungavaha. Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Viryavan Kashi Rajascha, Purujit Kunti Bhojaha, Cha Narapungavaha, Shaibyaha Cha. So, Drishtaketu, Chekitana, the very brave Viryavan, brave Kashi Raja, king of Kashi. Then we have Purujit and Kunti Bhoja. Then Nara Pum Gavaha. So Gava is cow or cattle, and Pum Gava is bull. Pum is like Pullinga we have, right? So Nara Pum Gavaha. So he's a bull among men. That means he's a great fighter, great. So almost like a bull in prowess and abilities. So Shaibya. Of course, there might be a question, who are these people? It's really not very important for the Bhagavad Gita, but just in case you want to know, Drishtaketu was a Vrishni king. Some references say that he's a son of Shishupala. And Chekitana, Drishtaketu's son. Then Kashi Raja is the king of Kashi. Purujit and Kunti Bhoja are said to be brothers in some texts. They are both sons of Kunti Bhoja, who was the foster father of Kunti. And Shaibya is somebody who is in the family of Shibi Maharaja, or from that place. So these are some of listing the great warriors. So we'll go line by line. Drishtaketus Chekitanaha.
दृष्टकेतुश्चेकितानः
Kashirajascha Viryavan.
काशीराजश्च वीर्यवान्
Purujit Kunti Bhojascha.
पुरुजित् कुन्तिभोजश्च
Shaibyascha Narapungavaha.
शैब्यश्च नरपुङ्गवः.
Okay. Then he continues, Yudhamanyuscha Vikrantah Uttamojascha Viryavan Saubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharathaha. So who are these people next? Vikrantah Yudhamanyuh cha Viryavan Uttamojaha cha Saubhadraha Draupadeyaha cha Sarva Eva Maharathaha. These are the people. So Vikranta, very valiant Yudhamanyu. Then Uttamojas, who is very brave, Viryavan. Saubhadra is son of Subhadra, which is Abhimanyu. Then Draupadeyaha, the 5 sons of Draupadi. Sarva eva Maharathaha. All of them are Maharathas. And Yudhamanyu is, I think, a Panchala ruler. Some texts say, and Uttamojas is one of the sons of Drupada. And of course, Abhimanyu and sons of Draupadi had one son each from the Pandavas. So one son from Yudhishthira, from Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva. She had 5 sons. So the 5 of them, they are all great warriors. These are he's continuing that list of people. Okay, we will repeat. Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta.
Yudhamanyuscha Vikrantah.
Uttamojascha Viryavan.
Uttamojascha Viryavan.
Saubhadro Draupadeyascha.
Saubhadro Draupadeyascha.
Sarva eva Maharathaha.
Sarva eva Maharathaha.
Now he has described the Pandava army to his Acharya. Then he says, Asmakam tu Vishishtaye tan nibodha dvijottama nayaka mama sainyasya sanyartham tan bravimite. Dvijottama is an address to Drona. Asmakam tu Vishishtaha ye tan nibodha mama sainyasya ye nayakaha tan te sanyartham bravimi. So then he says, Acharya, Dvijottama, the greatest of Dvijas, or greatest of the Dvija is basically born twice. So the traditional belief is that after, the notion is that after the Upanayana, it's like a second birth. So it's called, anybody who has had a Upanayana is called a Dvija. So among the Dvijas, you are the great one. So he says, Asmakam, there are some special Vishishta ye. So there are some of the great warriors on our side as well. Tan Nibodha. So I'm saying this for, to tell you about it. And Mama Sainyasya, in my army. So here you can make out as the flavor of arrogance or self importance that Duryodhana has. He says it is my army, and we see that in the other verses of the first chapter as well. So he says the Nayaka Mama Sainyas. So these are the warriors who are in my army, and Tan Te Sanyartham Bravimi. I am enumerating it for your benefit. Just so that you know about it. I'm listing out. Now I have told you about the people on the Pandava side. I'll tell you the people on my side. Who are the people? Asmakam tu Vishishtaye.
Asmakam tu Vishishtaye.
Tan Nibodha Dvijottama.
Tan Nibodha Dvijottama.
Nayaka Mama Sainyasya.
Nayaka Mama Sainyasya.
Sanyartham tan bravimite.
Sanyartham tan bravimite.
Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjayaha Ashwathama Vikarnascha Saumadattis Tathaivacha. So Bhavan, your revered self, Bhavan, like we say, Aap, Neevu, you, Bhishma, cha Karnaha, cha Samitinjayaha Kripaha, cha so yourself and Bhishma, Karna, and Kripa, who is always victorious, Samitinjayaha, and Ashwathama, Vikarnaha, cha Tatha eva Saumadattihi cha Santi. So who are the people who are there? Yourself, there is Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, who is victorious always, Ashwathama, the son of Drona, then Vikarna, who is the brother of Duryodhana, and Saumadatti, who is the son of Somadatta. Saumadatti is a name for Bhurishravas. Somadatta is a cousin of Bhishma. So Somadatta's son is Bhurishravas. So all these people are there. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha.
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च
Kripascha Samitinjayah.
कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः
Ashwathama Vikarnascha.
अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च
Saumadattis Tathaivacha.
सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च
अन्ये च बहवः शूरा मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः. So he says, नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः शूराः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः अन्ये च बहवः मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः. So he says there are many other great warriors and heroes who are, having a multitude of weapons and the knowledge of how to use them, and they are all great masters of war. Yuddha Visharadaha. They're all great, warriors who have a lot of experience and they know a lot of weapons and everything. All of them have assembled ready to give up their life for my sake. So this is again a very clear indication of his bloated ego, that all these people are there because of me. Now, in a way, that's also true. Because of his obstinacy, there is a war. Because of his, jealousy and foolishness and wickedness, this war is being fought. If they were able to convince just one person that let us not have this war, it could have been averted. If Duryodhana had made up his mind that let us not have this war, the entire thing could have been averted. But because of his obstinacy, everybody had to suffer. And this is why in the Mahabharata we see many years before the war, when Duryodhana is born, Vidura, who is the wise brother of Dhritarashtra, tells him, this is a poisonous offspring. Discard this guy. You have 100 sons. You discard this one fellow for the sake of the kingdom. But Dhritarashtra is so drowned in affection for his son that he doesn't care about dharma. He doesn't care about anything else. Just that affection and that blind love for his children is what is driving him all through his life. So we find that he grows up to be Duryodhana, and this is what happens. So we'll repeat. Anye cha bahavaha shura.
अन्ये च बहवः शूरा
Madarthe tyakta jivitaha.
मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः
Nana shastra praharanaha.
नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः
Sarve yuddha visharadaha.
सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः.
Then he says, Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishma bhirakshitam paryaptam twidam etesham balam bhima bhirakshitam. Asmakam bhishma abhirakshitam tat balam aparyaptam. Idam tu etesham bhima abhirakshitam balam paryaptam. This verse has been interpreted slightly differently by different people, but given the context of the Mahabharata, the following seems more reasonable. So, like I said, within such a short time, the Pandavas are able to put together such a large army that it comes as a shock to Duryodhana and to the Kauravas. So he says, this Balam, the army, which is protected by Bhishma, Abhirakshitam. So Bhishma is the commander-in-chief, or he's the main warrior. So the army which is protected by Bhishma, who is led by Bhishma, Asmakam, our, seems insufficient, aparyaptam. It seems inadequate. Whereas this army in front of us, which is led by Bhima, although Drishtadyumna is the commander-in-chief, for some reason he sees Bhima as the main leader because of his personal jealousy. Also, maybe for the sake of prasa, Bhishma, Bhima, Bhishma bhirakshitam, Bhima bhirakshitam. Maybe for the sake of alliteration, for rhyme, prasa, they might have done that. Also, it may be because of Duryodhana's special hatred for Bhima. So he says, Paryaptam, this army which is led and protected by Bhima, it seems sufficient. It seems big already, but ours seems inadequate. So he wants more people on his side and less on the other side. So when he sees that, he says that seems sufficient, whereas our army seems inadequate. Okay. We will repeat. Aparyaptam tadasmakam.
Aparyaptam tadasmakam.
Balam bhimabhirakshitam.
Balam bhishmabhirakshitam.
Sorry, bhishmabhirakshitam. Once again. Balam bhishmabhirakshitam.
Balam bhishmabhirakshitam.
Paryaptam tvidametesham.
Paryaptam tvidametesham.
Balam bhimabhirakshitam.
Balam bhimabhirakshitam.
Then he says, Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagam avasthitaha bhishmam evabhirakshantu bhavantaha sarva evahi. Sarveshu ayaneshu cha yatha bhagam avasthitaha bhavantaha sarve eva hi bhishmam eva abhirakshantu. So Duryodhana now turns towards his army and he announces, he says, all of you who have been assembled together, who are standing here in your designated positions, in all the places that you are standing, wherever you are positioned, I want all of you, Bhavantaha Sarva, all of you to protect Bhishma. Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu. So all of you, wherever you are in your positions, everything, give maximum priority to protect Bhishma, because he is the commander-in-chief, he is the important person. So Duryodhana tells his army to protect Bhishma. Okay. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu.
Ayaneshu cha sarveshu.
Yatha bhagam avasthitaha.
Yatha bhagam avasthitaha.
Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu. Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu.
Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu.
Bhavantaha sarva eva hi.
Bhavantaha sarva eva hi.
Just a small note about the poetic meter. Most of these verses are in a meter called Anushtup, which is 8 syllables in syllables in a line, so totally 32 syllables. There are some which in the Bhagavad Gita also which have little longer meters like Trishtup and so on, Jagati. And you will see some of these words like cha, tu, he, vai. These are often used as filler words, may not have a specific meaning. Like he means indeed. Cha is and, it's a conjunction. Tu is also like indeed, of course. So these kind of fillers are there for the sake of the poetic meter. So not all of them will have specific meaning. Unlike in a work like Brahma Sutra, where every single syllable will have certain significance. In a work like Mahabharata and Ramayana, which is a continuous narration of a story, some of these fillers will be there, which we can let it be. Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vriddaha pitamaha simhanadam vinadyochaihi shankham dadmo pratapavan. Pratapavan kuru vriddaha pitamaha tasya harsham sanjanayan simhanadam vinadya uchchaihi shankham dadmo. So Pratapavan, great warrior, great courageous person. Who is this courageous person? Kuru vriddaha, the old Kuru, among the Kurus, the senior most Kuru vriddaha, the grand old man, Pitamaha, the grandfather. Who is the grandfather? Bhishma. So Bhishma is the oldest in the battlefield. So this Pratapavan Kuruvriddha Pitamaha, what does he do? He blows the conch in with a lion's roar, Simhanadam, Vinadya. So he creates that Simhanada with his conch in a very high note, Uchaihi. And for what reason? To bring joy to Duryodhana, so that he is, comfortable. So to create, enthuse the army and to bring joy to Duryodhana, he blows the conch, which is a indication of the start of the war, in the sense that it is a preliminary undertaking that this conch is blown. Okay. Tasya Sanjayanan Harsham.
Tasya Sanjanayan Harsham.
Kuru Vriddaha Pitamaha.
Kuru Vriddaha Pitamaha.
Simhanadam Vinadyochaihi.
Simhanadam Vinadyochaihi.
Shankham Dadmau Pratapavan.
Shankham Dadmau Pratapavan.
Tataha Shankascha Bheryascha Panavanaka Gomukaha Sahasaivaabhi ahanyanta sa shabdas tumulo abhavat. Tataha tada Shankaha Bheryah cha Panava Anaka Gomukaha cha Sahasa eva abhyahanyanta sa shabdah tumulaha abhavat. So Shankha is conch. So all the conches are blown. Bheri is a certain instrument. Then Panava, Anaka, Gomukha. Gomukha is something which looks like the face of a cow, which is like a horn. Then Anaka, like we have Anaka, Dundubi, all these kind of different war instruments, which are like drums which are beaten, things which are blown. They have kahale and these kind of various war instruments. So all these things were sounded together, and this created a huge tumultuous noise. It completely, the battle arena was filled with this sounds from all these different instruments. So when Bhishma blew the conch, then suddenly this battlefield was filled with all these instruments. So tataha shankascha bheryascha.
Tataha Shankascha Bheryascha.
Panavanaka Gomukaha.
Panavanaka Gomukhaha.
Sahasaivabhyahanyanta.
Sahasaivabhyahanyanta.
Sa shabdas tumulo bhavat.
Sa shabdas tumulo bhavat.
Then tata shvetair hayair yukte mahati syandane stitau madhavah pandavaschaiva divyau shankhau pradadmatuhu. He says, Tataha Madavaha Pandavaha cha eva shvetaihi hayaihi yukte mahati syandane sthitau divyau shankau pradadmatuhu. So, Madhava, which is Krishna, and Pandava here refers to Arjuna. So, Krishna and Arjuna, they were having these white colored horses, Shvetaihi Hayair Yukte. So, their chariot was having these very, very beautiful white colored horses, and driving these horses, they entered, they were in this great battlefield, and they blew their divine conches. So now many of these conches, the shankhas or the weapons, were a result of some divine gift. So if you remember in the Mahabharata, just before the Khandava Dahana, then there is Agni comes and meets Krishna and Arjuna, and he grants them some weapons. So like this, Indra would have granted something, and then Arjuna, during the forest exile, he goes to Swarga, he fights with Shiva, the Kirata Arjuna Prasanga, he gets the Pashupatastra and so on. Like this, different Devas and Devatas would have granted some of these Shankas or the Ayudhas to the warriors. So that's why he says Divyo Shankau. So the two of them blew both their conches are divine gifts from some Devatas. So they blew the conches. Pradadmatuhu. Tatah shvetair hayair yukte
ततः श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते
mahati syandane sthitau
महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ
madhavah pandavaschaiva
माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव
divyau shankhau pradadmatuhu.
दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः.
Okay, so maybe I'll stop here for today and we can continue with the blowing of the conches of different people tomorrow. I'll just quickly give you a run through of what we saw today. First is Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya, what is happening on the battlefield? What are my people and the Pandavas doing on the battlefield? Tell me. And Sanjaya begins to narrate what all happened. So, first of all, he says, looking at this great Pandava army, Duryodhana goes up to Drona and says that look at this great army which has been arrayed by your talented disciple, Drishtadyumna, and there are several warriors on the Pandava side who are equal to Bhima and Arjuna, and he lists out all these warriors. Then he says, even in our side, there are these great warriors like yourself and Bhishma and Karna and so on. And all these people are ready to give up life for my sake. And our army seems insufficient, whereas the other side seems sufficient, seems adequate. And he tells everybody to protect Bhishma from all sides and to evoke happiness, san janayan harsham, to invoke happiness in Duryodhana. Bhishma blows his conch and creates a big noise, and that creates an entire cacophony of different war instruments, and the entire battlefield is resounding with this tumultuous noise of the different instruments. And the two of them, Krishna and Arjuna, who are seated on this chariot with white horses, they enter the field of battle, and they are also start blowing their divine conches. So roughly this is what we have covered, and tomorrow we will look at the next things where they will all blow the conches and set up the stage for the despondency of Arjuna. So if we look at the first chapter, roughly we may divide it into three parts. The first part is this continuation from the Mahabharata story itself, where the different warriors have been spoken about, and there's a description of the army and so on. The second part is where Arjuna looks at the army and he suddenly gets into despair. And the third part is all the explanation that he gives and the reasoning he gives for not wanting to fight. So roughly we can divide it into three segments. And then the Bhagavad Gita instruction of Krishna starts properly in the second chapter. So if with this we come to the end of today's session. Let me see if there are any note in the chat. Okay. So there's a question about significance of the number 18. I think maybe people initially thought 18 is a good number, and then that kind of continued as a metaphor. So we have 18 Parvas of Mahabharata, 18 days of the war, and 11 plus 7, 18 Akshauhinis totally fighting, 18 Mahapuranas. Like this, it became a sort of sacred number. Maybe initially it was just a notion that this is important, and later people maybe it just sounded like a complete thing. So, for example, we say 10 is a round figure. So, like that, it might have been just like a round figure of those days. Okay, so if there are any questions about today's session, please just write it in a short email to me, and I'll try to take it up in tomorrow's class in the beginning if there is any doubt. And if it is something general which is not related to Bhagavad Gita, then we will take it up later on. But any questions specifically about today's session, please send it to me. And if there's any feedback, if you feel I'm going too slow or too fast, or if there's some other suggestions you have, if there was some errors, please feel free to let me know, because this is a learning process for me also. Along with you, I'm also learning. So like I said, it's just that I've taken a few steps ahead when compared to some of you. I know that there are people who are friends and relatives of mine who are much better than me. They are just coming here to be in this session to bless me, not anything else. So if any feedback from your side, please feel free to let me know. And thank you very much. Have a nice day if you're in India, and good night if you're in the US. Namaste.
नमस्ते, धन्यवाद.